The Empyrean chamber of the Cathar Grand Conclave hummed with a silence more profound than any sound. Its polished obsidian floor reflected the swirling nebulae projected onto the vaulted ceiling, a constant reminder of the vast, unconquered territories their Imperium had yet to claim. But today, the celestial panorama was a source not of ambition, but of a chilling, existential dread. At the heart of this dread was a single, impossibly dense point of data on the central hollow table, an anomaly that had paralyzed the strategic and philosophical core of their ancient civilization. It was a ghost, a phantom vessel that had drifted from the blackness between galaxies, a warship that shouldn't exist. Grand Artificer Javoth, his multifaceted eyes cycling through a spectrum of agitated hues, gestured a fragile, crystalline hand toward the shimmering representation. The image was stark, a vessel of brutalist, geometric design, devoid of the graceful, energy-conserving curves that defined every known starfaring race. It was a jagged spearhead of a ship, wrought from a material so dense it warped localized sensor readings, its energy signature a flat, unnerving whisper where there should have been the roaring heart of a star drive. "It has not moved in 3 rotations," Javoth's voice resonated, a low thrum that carried the weight of his office and his fear. "It remains precisely at the Lagrange point of our primary star and the gas giant Xylos. It answers no hails. It emits no recognizable communication frequencies. It simply is. A monument to a physics we do not comprehend, built by a species we have never encountered." His gaze swept across the assembled conclave members, beings of immense age and power, their forms diverse yet united by the faint, bioluminescent glow of their shared lineage. There was High Prelate Orin, his body a column of shimmering, semi-solid light, his thoughts typically as clear and penetrating as a focused starbeam, now clouded with uncertainty. Beside him sat Matriarch Vess, her chitinous armor, usually a vibrant tapestry of her clan's history, now muted to a somber, slate gray, her powerful mandibles clenched in silent deliberation. And then there was Elder Thack, the historian and philosopher, his ancient, bark-like skin covered in the glyphs of 1,000 cycles, his gaze fixed on the phantom ship with an expression that bordered on morbid fascination. This humanity, as the preliminary linguistic decryptions of their rudimentary carrier signals suggest they call themselves, defies all established models of cosmic emergence, High Prelate Orin projected, his thoughts rippling through the chamber's psychoconductive atmosphere. Emergent species are chaotic, they are loud, they spill into the void with clumsy, inefficient ships, broadcasting their existence with a desperate, youthful arrogance. They scream their intentions to the stars. This is different. This is a silence that speaks of immense, patient power. They have sent a single vessel, an apex predator, and it does nothing but watch. It is the most profound act of intimidation our Imperium has ever witnessed. He was right. The Cathar, like all elder races, had archives filled with the histories of fledgling civilizations. They knew the patterns. A species would achieve spaceflight, and their first ventures would be a cacophony of unsecured transmissions, leaking radiation and inefficient propulsion systems. This human ship was the antithesis of that. Its energy containment was near perfect. Its stealth, even when sitting in plain sight, was an order of magnitude beyond their own theoretical limits. Its very presence was a violation of the known principles of stellar engineering. Matriarch Vess finally broke her silence, her voice a sharp, percussive series of clicks and resonations that conveyed deep-seated martial pride and an even deeper-seated worry. Intimidation or invitation? We have sent diplomatic overtures on all known spectra, from simple mathematical progressions to complex psionic greetings. We have broadcast our Charter of Peaceful First Encounter, the document that has governed our initial interactions for millennia. The silence is their only reply. A warrior does not stand silently before an opponent's gate unless they are certain of the outcome. We must consider this a prelude to aggression. The warship that shouldn't exist is, by its very nature, an act of war. She gestured with a powerful forelimb, and a new set of data scrolled beside the human vessel. Our deep-range sensor arrays, operating at maximum resolution, have analyzed its hull composition. The material is a layered crystalline lattice interwoven with a metallic hydrogen substrate. To forge such a material would require sustained pressures and temperatures found only in the core of a brown dwarf. To shape it into a vessel of this size, the energy expenditure would be sufficient to ignite a new star. It is not built, it is create. This is not a ship. It is a declaration of mastery over the fundamental forces of the universe. A wave of unease washed over the conclave. Mastery. It was a word the Cathar used sparingly. They were masters of their own domain, a vast and glorious imperium, but they acknowledged the universe's deeper, untamable secrets. These humans, however, seemed to wear their mastery as a cloak of silent, dark metal. Elder Thack, who had remained still as a petrified tree, finally stirred. His voice was like the grinding of ancient stones, slow and deliberate, each word carrying the weight of history. "And yet," he began, his gaze unwavering from the hollow display, "consider the alternative. We perceive this vessel through the lens of our own history, a history of conquest, of subjugation, of technological advantage used as a weapon. Our imperium was forged in the fires of 100 wars. We see a warship because that is what we would build if we possessed such power. We see a threat because we in our youth were a threat." He paused, letting the uncomfortable truth settle in the chamber. What if this is not a warship? The term itself is our own projection. What if its purpose is something else entirely? A probe, an archive, a sentinel. A sentinel with weapon ports that defy theoretical classification, Matriarch Vess countered, her tone sharp. Our tactical analysis, while speculative, suggests the apertures along its hull are not conventional energy projectors. They appear to be focused reality warpers, not emitters of particles or energy, but projectors of localized space-time distortions. If our models are even remotely accurate, a single discharge from such a weapon would not detonate. It would unmake. It would erase matter and energy from existence within its target zone. It is a weapon of absolute negation. To call such a vessel anything other than a warship is an act of willful blindness. The chamber fell silent again, the weight of her words pressing down on them all. A weapon of unmaking. It was a concept from the darkest, most terrifying legends of the pre-Imperium eras, a power wielded only by mythological gods of destruction. And now, a vessel armed with such a theoretical horror was parked on their doorstep, maintained by a species they knew nothing about. Grand Artificer Javoth shifted his focus. The psychological impact on our outer colonies is already significant. Xylos, a world of billions, sits in the shadow of this entity. They see it in their skies, a sliver of impossible blackness against the familiar tapestry of their heavens. Productivity has fallen. Anxiety is rampant. They look to the conclave for answers, for reassurance, and we have none. We are the architects of an empire that has not known a true existential threat for 10,000 cycles. We have grown comfortable, complacent. This silent vessel has shattered that peace more effectively than 1,000 invading fleets. He looked at Orin, the prelate of diplomacy. "Your thoughts have been unusually quiet, High Prelate. What does the path of reason dictate now?" High Prelate Orin's luminous form pulsed gently, a sign of deep concentration. "The path of reason is clouded by the unknown. To attack is to invite a response from a power we cannot measure. It is an act of supreme folly. To do nothing is to cede the strategic and psychological advantage, to allow fear to corrode the foundations of our imperium from within. We are paralyzed between two unacceptable outcomes." His thoughts then turned inward, a private reflection that the others could sense but not fully decipher. He was wrestling with the core tenets of Cathar philosophy, the belief in an ordered, understandable universe. The humans were a living refutation of that belief. They were a variable that broke the equation of existence. How could a civilization evolve to such a level of power without first announcing itself, without passing through the predictable stages of interstellar development? Where were their clumsy probes, their arrogant broadcasts, their border skirmishes? It was as if they had sprung into being fully formed, a mature, ancient power appearing from nowhere. Elder Thack spoke again, his voice pulling them from their individual anxieties. "There is a third path, one we have not considered because it requires a quality we have long since forgotten: humility." The word hung in the air, alien and uncomfortable in this chamber of absolute authority. "We assume they are here for us. We assume their presence is a statement directed at the Cathar Imperium. This may be a projection of our own importance. This system, this star, is unremarkable save for our presence. What if they are not here for us at all? What if their purpose is so far beyond our understanding that we are merely a footnote in their calculations? The vessel sits at a Lagrange point, a point of gravitational equilibrium, an ideal location for long-term observation, not of a planet, but a star, our star." Implication was staggering. They had been so focused on the threat to their world, to their empire, that they hadn't considered that they might be entirely incidental. Matriarch Vess bristled at the thought. "Incidental? Our imperium spans 1,000 suns. Our civilization has shaped this galactic arm for millennia. We are not incidental." Her pride, the pride of a warrior race, was wounded. But the logic in Thack's words was undeniable. It was a possibility so humbling it felt like an insult. "Then we must force the issue," she declared, her resolve hardening. We will dispatch the Grand Fleet. We will surround the vessel, not in an act of aggression but as a demonstration of our own power. A statement that this sector of space is not empty. We will show them that we are a force to be acknowledged. We will create a crisis that demands a response. High Prelate Oren's light flared in alarm. You would risk everything on a show of force against a power that can theoretically unmake matter. Matriarch, your strategy is based on the assumption that they will react as we would, with a display of reciprocal strength. What if they react with nothing, or worse, with a demonstration of the very power you seek to challenge? Imagine our Grand Fleet, the pride of the Imperium, simply ceasing to exist. Not destroyed, not defeated, but erased. The psychological impact would shatter our civilization forever. We cannot risk it. The debate raged, a storm of logic, fear, pride, and desperation. The Cathar Imperium, a titan of the galaxy, was being held hostage by a single silent ship and the terrifying mystery it represented. The warship that shouldn't exist was not just a military problem, it was a philosophical one. It was a mirror reflecting their own deepest anxieties about their place in the cosmos. As the hours stretched into days, the vessel remained, a silent, black dagger aimed at the heart of their certainty. The conclave remained deadlocked, trapped in a state of profound and terrifying inaction. Every proposed solution was fraught with unimaginable risk, and with every passing moment of silence from the human ship, the tension in the Empyrean chamber and across the entire Imperium coiled tighter, promising that when it finally snapped, the consequences would be felt across the stars. The decision was finally made, a fragile compromise born of desperation and Elder Thak's quiet insistence. They would not send the fleet. They would not issue threats. They would try one last time to communicate, but in a way they never had before. Not as a superior elder race greeting a newcomer, but as equals, an offering of pure, unadorned data. They would transmit the fundamental principles of their own existence, their complete genome, their recorded history, their philosophical treatises on the meaning of life and the universe, their deepest fears and greatest hopes. They would lay their civilization bare, a gesture of absolute vulnerability. It was an act of supreme trust or supreme foolishness. No one was certain which. The transmission was sent, a tight beam of pure information aimed at the silent hull of the human ship. It was an offering of their soul into the void, and the only response was the same profound, unnerving silence. For another full rotation, nothing happened. The data packet was absorbed by the ship without acknowledgement, like a stone dropped into a bottomless well. The tension in the conclave became unbearable. Matriarch Vess began to quietly argue for a preemptive strike again, her patience worn to a sliver. High Prelate Oren's light flickered with anxiety. Even Elder Thak seemed to sag under the weight of the silence. They had offered their essence, and the universe had not cared. The warship remained. Then, without any warning, it happened. A single, focused beam of energy, impossibly precise, shot out from the human vessel. It was not a weapon discharge. It was a communication laser aimed directly at the Empyrean chamber. Before any defenses could be raised, before any panic could set in, the beam resolved itself on the hollow table, overriding their own systems with a calm, effortless authority. The image of the jagged, black ship vanished, replaced by a new one. It was a creature, a bipedal life form of startling symmetry. It was encased in a simple, dark gray uniform, devoid of rank or adornment. Its skin was pale, its head topped with a fine, dark filament. It had two eyes, forward-facing, that held an expression of placid neutrality. There was no aggression in its posture, no arrogance in its gaze. There was only a profound and unnerving stillness, a calmness that seemed to echo the silence of its ship. Behind it, the interior of the human vessel was visible, not a warship's bridge of chaotic consoles and frantic crew, but a space of minimalist design, clean lines, and soft, indirect lighting. It looked more like a meditation chamber than a command center. A voice emerged. From the chamber's audio emitters, not a translation, but the Cathar's own language, spoken with flawless grammar and a serene, melodic cadence. We are the entity you call human. My designation is emissary. We have received your data offering. We thank you for this gesture of profound trust. It is admirable. The members of the conclave were stunned into silence. They had expected a warlord, a conqueror, a being crackling with power and ambition. They were met with a philosopher. High Prelate Oren was the first to recover, his luminous form stabilizing. You understand our language, our history, our essence. We do, the emissary replied, its voice calm and even. We have been observing your civilization for a period commensurate with 100 of your orbital cycles. Our analysis of your public data streams was sufficient to achieve linguistic and cultural fluency long ago. Your recent transmission, however, provided a depth of understanding that passive observation could not. It provided your why. We find it beautiful. The use of the word beautiful to describe their often bloody history of survival and conquest was so unexpected it left them momentarily speechless. Matriarch Vess, ever the pragmatist, pushed forward. You have sat in our system in a vessel of unimaginable power for weeks. You ignored our hails. You caused widespread panic. Why the silence? Why the intimidation? The emissary tilted its head slightly, a gesture that was somehow both alien and deeply contemplative. Intimidation was not our intent. We perceive now that our presence was interpreted as such, and for that we express regret. The silence was a necessity. We were not here for you. We were here for your star. This confirmed Elder Thak's humbling theory, and a ripple of renewed shock passed through the chamber. As for the vessel you have designated a warship, the emissary continued, it is not. Its purpose is not conquest. We no longer have a concept of war as you understand it. Then what is it? Javoth demanded, his voice tight with a mixture of fear and desperate curiosity. What is a vessel armed with weapons of absolute negation, if not a warship? The emissary's calm expression did not change, but its eyes seemed to gain a new depth, a profound and ancient sorrow. It is a lifeboat. The statement was so simple, so completely out of context, that it made no sense. And those are not weapons, they are tools. The forces they manipulate are not for unmaking, but for creation. The emissary gestured, and the image behind it shifted. The conclave watched, mesmerized, as the simulation showed one of the weapon apertures activating. A beam of focused distortion erupted from the hull, but instead of striking a target, it spread out, weaving the very fabric of spacetime like a cosmic loom. From the roiling chaos of quantum foam, matter began to coalesce. First hydrogen, then helium, then heavier elements, forged in a crucible of controlled reality. They watched in absolute, reverent awe as the human ship, in a matter of moments, constructed a perfect, stable brown dwarf star from nothingness. Our universe, the emissary explained, its voice a soft counterpoint to the cosmic creation they were witnessing, is dying. Not in a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, quiet heat death. Entropy is winning. The stars are going out one by one like embers in a cooling fire. Our civilization is old. We have watched galaxies fade. We have seen the last light of a trillion suns gutter and die. Our purpose is no longer to expand, to conquer, or to build empires. Our purpose is to preserve. To endure. The simulation shifted again, showing the vast, dark expanse of intergalactic space. Here and there, tiny points of light shone, the brown dwarfs they had just seen created. We travel the void from one galaxy to the next, seeking out the last vestiges of viable stellar systems. We find stars that are nearing the end of their life cycle, like yours, and we observe. We study them, gather data, and preserve the information. But our primary mission is to plant seeds. The emissary's gaze seemed to pierce through the hollow display, meeting the eyes of every member of the conclave. This vessel is not a warship. It is an ark. It carries the encoded consciousness of our entire species. Trillions of minds, digitized and held in a state of timeless suspension within the ship's crystalline computational core, and it is a terraformer on a scale you cannot imagine. The tools you mistook for weapons are used to build new stars, new worlds, new biospheres from the raw fabric of spacetime. We are not conquerors. We are gardeners. We are planting a new universe in the ashes of the old. The sheer, mind-breaking scale of the revelation washed over the Empyrean chamber. The Cathar had been afraid of a predator when in fact they were in the presence of a god. A sad, tired god, tending a dying garden and planting a new one. Their empire, the Wars, their entire history felt like the squabbles of insects in the shadow of a giant. You can create stars? High Prelate Orin managed to project, his own sense of reality fraying. We can, the emissary confirmed. It is a costly endeavor, requiring immense energy and a deep understanding of the universe's fundamental code. But it is what we do. It is all we have left to do. We travel, we observe, and we build. We build havens of light and life in the growing darkness, hoping that something, someday, will evolve to see the dawn of the next cosmic era. Elder Thak, his ancient face a mask of profound awe, took a slow step forward. Then your silence was reverence? You were not watching us. You were studying our sun, preparing for its eventual end. Precisely, the emissary said. Your star has several million of your cycles left before it begins its collapse. A significant amount of time for a biological species, but a fleeting moment for the universe. We were cataloging its unique fusion processes, its planetary system, the life it supports. Your existence is a precious, beautiful anomaly. We had no wish to interfere. Our prime directive is non-interference with nascent biological civilizations. We would have completed our survey and departed, leaving you to your destiny, had you not offered us the gift of your soul. That gesture of trust required a response. It required the truth. The warship that shouldn't exist. It existed not as a weapon of war, but as an instrument of cosmic rebirth. The Cathar had prepared for a confrontation, for a battle of fleets and strategies. They were now faced with a conversation about the end and beginning of universes. Matriarch Vess, the proud warrior, slowly lowered her head, her mandibles unclenching for the first time in weeks. Her entire worldview, her understanding of strength and power, had been dismantled in a matter of moments. True power was not the ability to destroy. It was the ability to create, the ability to endure. The humans, with their single, silent ship, were infinitely more powerful than her entire grand fleet because they wielded creation itself. What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice stripped of its usual authority, now small and uncertain. "We want nothing," the emissary replied, its serene calm unbroken. "Our path is a solitary one. We have explained our purpose to alleviate your fear, as your act of vulnerability deserved such a courtesy. We will now resume our study. When we are finished, we will depart, and you may continue your journey as a civilization." But it was too late for that. The Cathar could not go back to who they were before. The knowledge of the humans of the dying universe of the cosmic gardeners planting new stars in the dark had changed them irrevocably. Their conflicts, their ambitions, their entire imperium, it all seemed so small now, so tragically provincial. High Prelate Orin saw a new path forward, a path that led away from conquest and toward something far grander. "No," he projected, his light shining with a newfound clarity and purpose. "You will not depart without us. Your purpose, it is the only purpose that has ever truly mattered. Our imperium, it is an engine of industry, of science, of a billion minds working in concert. We cannot build stars, not yet, but we can learn, we can help. You are preserving life, we are life, let us help you." For the first time, a flicker of something new appeared in the emissary's eyes. It was not surprise, but perhaps resonance, a recognition of a kindred spirit. "Your species is young, your passions are strong. The path we walk is long and filled with a quiet, pervasive sorrow. It is a burden we have carried alone for eons." "Then do not carry it alone any longer," Elder Thack said, his voice imbued with the wisdom of his age. "You have shown us the true scale of existence. Allow us to find our place within it. Not as subjects, not as allies in a war, but as apprentices, fellow gardeners. The universe is dying, you say. Then every hand that can tend the fire, every mind that can nurture a seed, is a resource beyond measure." A long silence followed, but it was no longer the tense, fearful silence of before. It was a thoughtful, contemplative silence, bridging the unimaginable gulf between a young, vibrant empire and an ancient, weary species of creators. The emissary looked from one member of the conclave to the next, seeing not the arrogant imperialists they had been, but the humbled, awestruck beings they had become. The human, a being from a species that had transcended war, that had seen the end of everything, considered the passionate, heartfelt plea of a race that had only just begun to understand the true meaning of the word future. The Cathar held their collective breath. Their entire civilization balanced on the precipice of a decision that would redefine their destiny forever. "The journey is infinite," the emissary finally sighed. Its voice still serene, but now tinged with a warmth that had not been there before. "And the darkness is vast. Perhaps it would be better not to face it alone. Very well, we will share our knowledge. We will teach you what we have learned about the heart of matter, the song of spacetime, the rhythm of cosmic decay and rebirth. Your apprenticeship begins now." A sense of profound, earth-shattering relief and purpose washed through the Empyrean chamber. The fear was gone, replaced by a sense of unity that transcended the mere concept of an alliance. It was a merging of destinies, a joining of two entirely different forms of life in a single, sacred purpose, to stand against the dying of the light. The Cathar Imperium, a civilization built for war, would now reforge itself into an instrument of creation. Their fleets would become research vessels. Their warriors would become scholars. Their entire society would be reoriented toward the greatest task in the history of the universe. The integration began. The human ark, now named the Sower by the Cathar, became a place of pilgrimage and learning. Cathar scientists, engineers, and philosophers were ferried to the silent vessel, welcomed into its minimalist, serene halls. They interfaced with the human archives, vast libraries of knowledge that dwarfed their own accumulated wisdom. They learned of the humans' history, a species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times with its own warlike passions before achieving a global, unified consciousness. They had turned their immense capacity for innovation away from weapons and toward the fundamental problems of existence, eventually conquering disease, aging, and finally, entropy itself. The digitized minds within the Ark's core were not just a backup of their species. They were a chorus, a collective intelligence of unimaginable scope, and they guided the Cathar with infinite patience. The emissary, whose personal name was revealed to be Elias, became a permanent fixture in the Cathar conclave, a calm, steady presence that guided their monumental transition. The Cathar, for their part, proved to be brilliant students. Their disciplined, martial minds took to the complex physics of reality weaving with astonishing speed. They had the focus of warriors and the curiosity of children, a combination the humans found remarkable. Matriarch Vess, once the Imperium's greatest general, became the head of the joint stellar nursery project, overseeing the construction of new fabrication yards, not for warships, but for smaller, Cathar-built siege ships, designed to assist the humans in their grand purpose. The warship that shouldn't exist had become the university that would save the future. Months turned into years. A new era of unprecedented peace and progress dawned for the Cathar. Their society, once driven by the fear of outsiders, was now driven by a shared, cosmic purpose. They began to see the universe not as a territory to be claimed, but as a garden to be nurtured. Their alliance with the humans was not one of power or politics, but of a shared, sacred duty. They were no longer the Cathar Imperium. They were simply part of a larger whole. It was during a deep-level data exchange, a session where the Cathar were being taught the principles of multidimensional energy siphoning, that the final, most profound twist was revealed. Elder Thak was interfacing directly with the Ark's primary consciousness, his mind swimming in concepts that were as beautiful as they were complex. He was tracing the history of the humans' long journey, following their path across faded galaxies and through the vast, empty voids. He noted their course was not random. It was a precise, deliberate pattern, a grand spiral closing in on their own sector of the universe. He had assumed it was simply an efficient survey route. Why this path? Thak projected into the human datasphere, a question born of simple curiosity. Was there a specific reason you chose to travel through these particular galactic clusters? The response from the human collective was instantaneous, but it carried a weight that Thak had never felt before. It was a feeling of ancient, primal urgency, a purpose that dwarfed even the mission of reseeding the universe. A new stream of data flowed into his consciousness, not physics or history, but a recording, an audio signal. It was faint, degraded by an unimaginable journey across spacetime. It was a complex wave of sound, structured and clearly artificial, but it was not a language Thak could comprehend. Yet he could feel the intent behind it. It was a call, a cry, a desperate, fading signal that had been traveling for longer than the Cathar civilization had existed. We did not choose this path, the voice of the human collective echoed in his mind, the serene tone of Elias now imbued with a deep, resonant gravity. We are following this. It is the oldest thing we have ever encountered, a signal. That predates the current expansion of the universe. We believe it originates from a prior cosmic cycle, a message sent across the barrier of a big crunch, from a universe that existed before our own. Thak felt his mind reel, a message from a dead universe. What is it saying? We do not know, the humans replied, and Thak could sense the profound, eons-long frustration in their collective consciousness. Our every attempt to decrypt it has failed. The complexity of the information encoded within is beyond anything even we can comprehend. But we can isolate one part of it, a single, repeating concept that seems to be the core of the message, a warning. The data stream resolved into a single, terrifying Cathar word, translated from the heart of the ancient signal. Silence. The implication crashed over Thak with the force of a supernova. You are not just planting seeds for the future, he whispered, his mind connecting the pieces with dawning horror. Your quietness, your non-interference, your entire philosophy, it is not just a choice. It is a defense. You are hiding. Entropy is not the only thing that stalks the darkness between stars, the human collective confirmed, their voice a solemn whisper that seemed to echo from the end of time. There is something else, something ancient that moves through the silent places, something that listens. We do not know what it is or why it caused the end of the last universe. We only know that the final message sent by our predecessors was a warning to all who would come after. Do not make a sound. Do not broadcast your presence. Be quiet and you might survive. The loudness of your civilization, your energetic and expanding empire, it was like a beacon in the dark. We came here not just to study your star, but to shield you. To teach you how to be quiet before your light attracted the attention of that which hunts the light. The warship that shouldn't exist now had its final, terrible truth revealed. It was not a warship. It was not a lifeboat. It was a shroud. A tool designed to hide, to conceal, to build quietly in the dark, hoping to go unnoticed. The humans were not just gardeners. They were silent guardians, trying to nurture new life without waking an ancient, cosmic horror. Their serene, calm logic was not just a philosophical choice. It was a survival strategy honed over countless millennia of hiding. Thak disconnected from the interface, his ancient body trembling. He looked out from the arc at the Cathar ships moving with new, quiet purpose at the distant, swirling nebulae of his home. They had feared a human invasion. They had feared their own extinction. But the true threat was something far older, far larger, a predator that hunted entire universes. They had been saved from a threat they never even knew existed. Their new purpose was not just to plant stars, but to do so in absolute, terrified silence, to build a future in the shadow of an unknowable ancient enemy. Their union with humanity was not an alliance of hope, but a shared vigil in an endless, silent night. The future was no longer a bright, undiscovered country. It was a fragile, flickering candle in an infinite, listening darkness. And their sacred, terrifying duty was to ensure that candle never, ever made a sound.